Chapter 3. The Fight for Egypt. Egypt, 1164.
What are you doing, Yusuf? Why aren't you ready to go?
Shirkuh's face was red and angry. Yusuf jumped up when his uncle came into his office in the castle of Aleppo.
Why, Uncle, do you want me on the campaign? You said nothing about me coming, so I thought that you wanted me to stay here to take care of things.
Stupid boy. You know everything about my soldiers now. I need you to make sure that they have everything they need. Go. We leave tomorrow at first light.
It didn't take long for Yusuf to find his sword, a few clothes, and his holy Quran, and then to get his horse ready. At last, he was one of Nur ad-Din's soldiers, and not just an office boy for his uncle.
If I do well in Egypt, perhaps one day I can be in the army that will take back the holy places,
he thought.
Men,
Shirkuh called.
to take our enemies by surprise, we must move quickly. The journey will be very difficult, but never forget that you're the best soldiers in Syria. We'll do good work for Nur ad-Din in Egypt, and then the people and the gold of that rich country will help us to fight the Franks in the Holy Land.
There was a great shout from the men. Then they all jumped on their horses and rode out through the castle gates. While he followed the general and his men, Yusuf thought,
no one will ever see me afraid. I'll do my very best, and with God's help, my uncle, my father, and Nur ad-Din will see that I have done well.
The road was long and hard, but Yusuf worked without stopping to help Shirkuh get the army safely to Egypt. It was important that all the men, their weapons, and their horses were ready for the fight once they arrived. Yusuf enjoyed the campaign. Best of all was fighting at Shirkuh's side, riding with the Syrian army against King Amalric and his Frankish knights, and against the Egyptian enemies of Vizier Shawar. Yusuf watched and learned while his uncle won quickly with a few short, well-fought battles. With the help of the Syrians, Shawar was soon the strongest man in Egypt once again. But he wanted to be strong without the help of Nur ad-Din's army, and he did not want to pay Nur ad-Din the gold that he promised him before. Shawar decided to talk to the Franks.
I don't like General Shirkuh and the Syrians. They want to get their hands on Egypt. So I want your knights to push him and his army out of the country. If you do what I ask, I'll give you the money that I promised Nur ad-Din.
The Frankish generals agreed to help Shawar, and they battled against Shirkuh and his soldiers and pushed them out of Egypt. The Syrians fought bravely, but in the end, they had to go back to Aleppo with nothing to show for their hard work. Nur ad-Din was very angry. He thought that the campaign was a bad use of time, money, horses, and men. He didn't want his army to go to Egypt ever again. Shirkuh was angry too.
Don't worry, Yusuf,
he said to his nephew.
Shawar will never win against me. Just wait. Nur ad-Din doesn't want more fighting now, but when he sees how Amalric and the Franks get rich in Egypt with Shawar's help, he'll send us again. And then we'll make that criminal Shawar sorry that he was ever born.
Egypt, 1167. The old general was right. 3 years later, Yusuf, now 29, was marching beside his uncle at the head of the Syrian army.
Why aren't we taking the same road to Egypt as last time, General?
Asked Yusuf.
Shawar and the Franks know that we're coming. We must travel quickly and secretly. My hope is to surprise them by taking the road down to the Dead Sea, and then traveling through the Sinai Desert. We'll get into the country by the back door, while our enemies are looking for us through their front windows.
But, Uncle, won't it be terrible for the men?
Yes, but my soldiers are brave, and they want to win against Shawar and his Frankish friends. They'll do it.
They crossed the hot, dry land, and near Suez there was a deadly desert storm that very nearly killed them all. Men and horses were ill or died, but Yusuf spoke to the soldiers to help them go on bravely.
Nur ad-Din needs you to teach Shawar that he can't break his promises to Syrians and stay out of danger. Under Shirkuh, we'll have a great victory in Egypt, and then he'll give rich presents for the bravest.
Finally they arrived. The men were very weak, and Shirkuh decided that they weren't ready to fight against the large armies of Vizier Shawar and King Amalric. He stopped his soldiers at Giza, on the other side of the river from Cairo.
We'll wait and see what they do. I know that Shawar's in trouble. Most Egyptians don't like it that he's friendly with the Franks. Everyone hates it when he gives Egyptian money to Amalric, because they know that he uses it to keep the Franks fighting in the Holy Land. No Muslim wants this. Before long, all the Egyptians will fight for us.
At last, early one spring morning, Yusuf ran to his uncle.
Sir, the enemy's coming!
The old general looked at his nephew.
Today, I want you to do some real fighting, Yusuf. Take the group of soldiers in the middle of my army. Make the Frankish knights think that you and your men are weak and afraid. Turn and run. They'll follow with the hope of killing many of you. But I'll take the rest of our army around them. Then, you'll surprise them when you turn round and fight.
Yusuf was worried.
Will I do well? Will the men follow me and do what I ask?
But there were no problems. The plan worked. King Amalric was lucky to get away safely, but Syrian swords and arrows killed many of his knights. It was a great victory for Nur ad-Din's men, but Shirkuh knew that he was not safe.
Yusuf, you're a good soldier, and one day I know you'll be a great general. But we can't stop now. Take the men to Alexandria, where we have friends. I'll get the country people to help me make trouble for Shawar and the Franks here. I'll come and help you when I've finished.
It was a long time before Yusuf and his men saw the general again. For months, Yusuf and his small army fought to keep Alexandria safe from the Franks. The enemy came by land and by sea. No food or help could come into the town from outside, and siege engines sent stones and dead animals over the city walls. This made life terrible for the people and the soldiers inside the city. Many were ill, all were hungry, and many died. But Yusuf kept his men fighting, while he worked as hard as possible to make the lives of the people of Alexandria easier.
I'm sorry,
He said.
It's because you're our friends that you're in trouble now. But I know that my uncle will come soon, and then the siege will be over. Until he arrives, be strong and brave. I promise that the enemy won't take the town while we're here, and my men and I will do all that we can to keep you safe.
Yusuf was right. At last his uncle came with his new army and ended the siege. The town was out of danger, but the war wasn't over yet. And there was a lot of work to do to make the people of Alexandria truly safe. Yusuf went to talk to the Franks to try to find ways to help the sick and wounded Muslims in the town.
Will the Franks understand that it's wrong to fight old men, women, and children?
He worried.
I must remember all that I learned from Nur ad-Din about talking to angry and difficult people. If I'm wise and careful, God will help me.
After the long siege, Amalric's men already knew that Yusuf was a good soldier. While he explained the problems of the people of Alexandria, the Franks learned that he was a good man too. Humphrey of Toron, an important knight, said,
General Shirkuh's nephew, Yusuf, is more truly chivalrous than any of us. I wish that we worried as much as he does about those that are too weak or sick to fight. I'd like to make him a knight, even if he's a Muslim.
It was from this time that people in Europe began to hear how kind and generous Yusuf was. While Yusuf tried to make things better in Alexandria, Vizier Shawar gave the Syrians gold to make them leave Egypt. But Shirkuh was still angry. He wanted to win the war, and he wanted the Franks out of the country. Most of all, he wanted Shawar out of Cairo, and he thought that most Egyptians wanted this too. But Yusuf, after his terrible time in Alexandria, was happy to march back home.